This magic moment.
Now, this magic moment. Orlando rises.
That's the winner for the Magic.
Legends live.
Here's Hardaway. He'll hammer home on Ewing. Oh, baby.
And the magic is real.
Yes, it's over.
Strap in. It's showtime with R.J. Saunders.
It is this magic moment here on 1010XL Magic. RJ Saunders here with you. We so appreciate you guys being here with us. The Orlando Magic looking to grab their first back-to-back winning outcome tonight. It is going to be tough, however, as you have Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, and the Philadelphia 76ers coming into town. Orlando is also looking to get healthy. The hope is Franz and Mo Wagner will be back sometime soon. Also, Jalen Suggs, who I believe is ruled out for tonight's matchup. We'll get into a whole lot of that and more here on today's show. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel if it is your first time here. Also, let us know in the comment section your thoughts on how you think the Orlando Magic are doing this year. As always, we would love to hear from you. All right, so we had our first big trade in the NBA this year. Trae Young is now going to the Washington Wizards in exchange for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. I had some initial reactions to the trade, one being that Trae Young went for pennies on the dollar. And if I were teams such as Minnesota, who have needed a point guard for quite some time to pair along with Anthony Edwards, I probably would have made a call. But secondly, you're trading Young to a younger roster, who you're going to assume he is going to help, in the words of James Gladstone here in Jacksonville, raise the floor of that group. But here's the thing for me as well. I mentioned you trading him to a younger roster, and there were some folks who thought that the young roster that made sense for him was probably the Orlando Magic. And I think that the thought process of many fans was, if you could get an established all-star or an all-star level player and bring them the City Beautiful, you're essentially pushing all your chips to the front of the table, and you're saying that we're competing for the title right now. And my thoughts have been, if nothing else, consistent, because I don't think Jeff Weltman wants to give up on any of his guys in which he's drafted, because he's seen what Oklahoma City has done. He's seen how they've built. And now you also see Atlanta. They're going to be building around their young talent as well. And you're going to compete in that way instead of star chasing, which maybe the old regime here in Orlando may have done. And if you would have traded for Trae Young, my thought process is, if it didn't work, hindsight looking at it, you would have said it was more of a panic move, right? But when you see Trae and he's on the floor, he's an NBA highlight waiting to happen. You see it on YouTube, you see it on Twitter, you see it on IG or on your TV screen night after night when the Atlanta Hawks are playing, or if you're a Hawks fan. But what Trae Young is versus what Orlando is, that move, in my opinion, wouldn't have been the correct fit. What necessarily he gives you night after night isn't exactly what Orlando needs. And in fact, and this is just my opinion, you would have almost completely had to reset your identity if you would have traded for Trae Young. Not continuing the natural evolution, the natural progression in which you're believing you are making with your young established stars, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, now Anthony Black, Jalen Suggs, etc. Does Orlando need a point guard? The more and more I think about it, I've always said yes and no, but for me, when I say the term point guard, I'm normally looking at that as the traditional point guard, such as a Tyus Jones. And I know in today's NBA, the majority of the point guards in which you have are score first. For example, Trae Young. But I continue to look at this team, and I don't think traditional point guard or the quote-unquote guard that can get the ball out of Paolo and Franz's hands is the neon light flashing problem in which they have. Honestly, I look at Tyus right now and I say, I don't know if that was the correct move for Orlando to make. I liked it when it initially happened, but I don't know if this is going to be the guy that's going to be the answer for you long term. However, I do think if they do keep him past the trading deadline, there are going to be a lot of moments in which you are going to love the fact that Tyus Jones is on this team. Long term answer, I don't think that's the case. But I have said that that's in large part due to what we're seeing from Anthony Black, and we talked about that in our last video. The problem is, for me, I think defensively, there hasn't been a level of consistency that Orlando Magic fans would like. We've seen flashes. We've seen times that this team has been that team we fell in love with a couple of years ago. And you said that you have to bring your hard hat to every game. But underline defensively. And that's something that Trae Young was not going to give you on this team. This is a team, in my opinion, that still stands on the switching defensively, having a lot of guys that can guard multiple positions, and trading for a guy like Trae, although it would have been fun, I think a lot of teams in the playoffs, New York, Detroit, Philadelphia, and others, I think you're hunting him in a lot of situations, especially in the pick and roll. And that's not what Orlando would want in the playoffs. The other reason why I think this was such a smart move is because of the fact that you want Paolo Banchero to continue to develop. Yes, he's the all-star guy. But guys have to continue, in my opinion, fans of the Orlando Magic, fans of Paolo Banchero, you have to understand that this is a guy who is still developing. He's a guy who's still working on, in my opinion, being the franchise leader of this bunch. I think he's still working on being a guy who can be smart late and be a great decision maker late in games. Although, listen, he made an incredible shot against the Brooklyn Nets just a couple of nights ago. And if you missed out on that, here's Jake Chapman with the call.
AB trying to get it in, finds Paolo. Here we go. 3 ball at the horn. Banked in! Paolo banked it in! Paolo banked it in! And the Magic get out of here with a dub! Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. The win of the season. Victory snatched from the jaws of defeat for your Orlando Magic.
And it's reps like that for Paolo Banchero, in my opinion, to become a better player. And as sports fans, when you have stars or a team that you feel can compete for a title, you feel that said star player should almost be speeding up the process and becoming far superior than what he already is. Or you think that bringing in a LaMelo Ball, a Trae Young, and Anthony Simons is going to be the sweetener to the pot. But in my opinion, bringing in those guys would say we're bringing in a player who is better at doing what Paolo Banchero can't at this moment in time. I think a Trae Young trade would have turned Paolo more into a finisher, not a creator. And if you are a team or if you're a fan of the group and you're saying that Paolo Banchero is going to turn into a top 10 player in the NBA one day, you don't want to stunt his growth for the sake of someone else's offense. Now, if you didn't think that it was going to stunt said growth, then you make the deal. But I'll give Jeff Weltman some credit here for keeping his hands in his pockets for this particular trade. Other side of the coin, though, I do not believe he can keep his hands in his pockets in this NBA trading deadline. I think that Orlando needs to find some more 3-and-D type guys for the style in which they want to play. Now, Philip Rossman-Reich of Orlando Magic Daily, also friend of the program here, he's also explained that the Magic are looking to get under the tax. Now, what that looks like, we don't know yet. As much as Weltman has kept his hands in his pockets when it came to the Trae Young trade or a LaMelo Ball trade or an Anthony Simons trade, he's kept his hands in his pockets in terms of the type of players he's looking for that he would be willing to trade for that fits in for this team stylistically. In my opinion, I would like to see a guy like Keon Ellis from Sacramento. I think that's a low-cost move for what you are trying to achieve at the level in which you are. Colin Sexton would be a guy that I think I would be on the lookout for, especially when this team is healthy, because I think if you're saying you have two dogs defensively at the guard spot in your starting group with Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane, then you're going to be bringing in two more guards that are dogs on the defensive end, and Colin Sexton, as well as Anthony Black, who, when the team is healthy, he'll move back to the bench. Another guy that I would be on the lookout for, in my opinion, I would like to see if Atlanta's looking to flip Corey Kispert. And if they are, what is the asking price? He's shooting nearly 40% from distance this year. If you also want to bolster your bench, I think that's a guy in which you can look at. A trio of Corey Kispert, Anthony Black, and Mo Wagner, as well as Tristan Da Silva. I think that's a great second group in which you have. And we're also seeing Noah Penda coming along fairly well. So you may have a good five coming off of the bench. If you do not want Corey Kispert, maybe you look to Utah, ask about a Svi Mikhailuk. That's a guy who's low cost. He could be low risk, high reward for you if he works out. He's a solid vet as well. And I think that when you talk about the development of Franz Wagner as well as Paolo Banchero, that's a guy in which you are going to need. So there are going to be a lot of small moves in which the Magic can make where you aren't sucking the identity out of this group, right? But what Orlando also needs, more than anything, is to get healthy. And we've been saying that now for a couple of years, but this is a team that hasn't gotten a fair shake yet, in my opinion, because you haven't seen the sum of all your parts as of yet. And that was a big argument that Jeff Weltman made last year when it came to Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero, that they hadn't even played double-digit games together last season. I don't think you can make the same excuse now this season, because I do believe having an all-star like Paolo Banchero on the floor, a very good second option in Desmond Bane while you wait for your main second option to come back in Franz Wagner, and a rising star such as Anthony Black, I don't think that should equal a team treading water. But I do think this is going to be a very different team when Mo gets back, when Franz gets back, when Jalen is back, and you see Black go to the bench, and Mo is your first big coming off of the bench. Now, there is a lot else that we could get into in terms of what Orlando is needing, because there have been a lot of hiccups from the team this season that may be shining a bigger problem than maybe few want to admit. But if you're talking about wanting to bring in guys who can help the roster right now, I think there are going to be a few. So not trading for Trae is huge for Orlando. But the question is going to be, is Jeff Weltman looking to make any moves? And I think he will have no excuse if he keeps this same roster by the trading deadline. I think a move needs to be made. But I would love to hear your thoughts on the matter in the comments section here. Just who are a couple of guys that you think would be a great fit for this Orlando Magic roster? And also make sure to like as well as subscribe to the channel here. Got a lot of great things going on this season as we continue to cover the Orlando Magic here in Duval County. Let's welcome in Brian Hill to the program. Want to get his thoughts as a former head coach. What would be the message to his team at this point in the regular season? The patience he would have to have with a group that's been injury-riddled. Also break down the team's upcoming game against the 76ers tonight. Let's say hello to Coach Brian Hill. Our next guest is the former head coach of the Orlando Magic. He is now doing phenomenal work as an analyst for the ball club alongside Dante Marchitelli. He is Coach Brian Hill, joining us now on this Magic Moment here on 1010XL's podcast network. Coach, I appreciate a couple moments, sir. How are you?
I'm good, RJ. Happy to be with you, and always happy to talk about the Magic.
We certainly appreciate the time as always. I wanted to start out with just how do you think the team has done given the circumstances? You've dealt with a lot of injuries to a lot of key guys, and of course, there have been some things we know this team can do better, and I'm sure inside of that building they understand they can do better as well. But just what have you felt about the team so far this year?
Yeah, I think by and large the team has accomplished pretty much what it can, given the situation with the injuries that they've had. I don't think the average person realizes how important Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs are to the overall ability of this team. And everybody talks about Paolo Banchero, and rightfully so, but Franz Wagner is every bit as good as Paolo Banchero, and Jalen Suggs is one of the best defensive guards in the NBA, and a guy that really rallies this team. We've lost a couple games to teams beneath us in the standings that we probably shouldn't have. But other than that, I think Coach Mosley has done a good job considering the circumstances with the injuries. And I should mention also Mo Wagner.
Right.
Mo Wagner was a critical part of our second unit, who was averaging about 14 points a game when he got hurt last year. And I think we're going to be getting both these guys back, if not tonight, maybe Sunday before they head over to Europe.
I remember you on a broadcast speaking about Paolo Banchero and you wanting for him to have a takeover game and get back to playing the style of basketball in which we know he can play. Do you think he's gotten back to that style of play in which we are accustomed to seeing? He's putting up big numbers and has done so the last few games since returning from his injury. Had a huge game winner against the Brooklyn Nets a couple of nights ago. We're looking for the same effect here tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers. Just have you felt Paolo's gotten his sea legs under him and is getting back to the form in which we know he can be that gets the Orlando Magic a whole lot of wins?
I think he's getting back to the ability that he had prior to his long injury last year, and then the 10 or so games he was out this year. I think he's got his legs underneath him. I think his conditioning is great, but he can't be as good as he can be without Wagner, and especially Wagner, Franz on the floor, and even Jalen Suggs to a certain point. So I think he's even capable of much more once those two guys return.
You speak on Franz Wagner, and Franz, it seems to me that he is a very underrated player in the NBA. We understand how valuable he is as Orlando Magic fans, and you also being on the Orlando Magic broadcast, just his impact when he's able to come back and be in the lineup alongside Paolo Banchero. Just what kind of a difference is that going to be able to make to the overall outlook of the team?
Well, I would say to your first point, Franz Wagner is probably the most underrated player in the Eastern Conference by the media.
Right.
Last year, for example, before he got hurt, he would definitely have been an all-star prior to his injury.
Right.
And he was playing just as well this year prior to his injury. He's a guy that just has that ability to attack off the dribble, but he does it in a different way than Paolo does. He's more of a straight line driver, getting to the basket and finishing, and he's also great getting out in transition and finishing. Paolo is more of a back you down, spin off your body. He scores in different ways. He uses his size and strength to score, where Franz is more of a finesse scorer.
I want you to take me into your coaching mind here. The year is 1994. You guys are 21-16. A lot of expectations for the group that year. Ultimately, you go from 21 wins to to finishing the season with 50. This Magic team this year is 21-17, still trying to figure things out. But just as a coach, back in that 93-94 season, what was your message to the ball club that helped the turnaround, and what would be your message to this year's team to help them turn around their season, hopefully?
Man, you're asking me to go way back, RJ. I'm not sure exactly. I can probably tell you what it was. The message would have just been, stay with what we're doing, come to work every day and be ready to put your work in, because, we're eventually going to get to where we want to be, but it's not going to be without a lot of hard work and some dedicated practice time every day. And I had an excellent group of guys, obviously. Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott. We were Jeff Turner was the starting power forward on that team. We were a good basketball team, but it just came just from everybody working together, and things were different back then. You practiced differently back then. You went 5-on-5, first team against the second team, in practice every day, which is non-existent today across the NBA. And that was the way you got better, by practicing against your second unit, because those second unit guys, they wanted to be starters.
Yeah.
So they were going to push you every day in practice to get better. And to me, that's a big part of, one of the problems with the league today is that teams no longer practice. They say, injuries and this and that. Well, there's more injuries today than there ever were.
Right.
And I believe a big part of it is their bodies just aren't conditioned enough by not practicing and having contact on a daily basis.
We'll go from 1994 and shift it just 1 year later in 1995. Horace Grant was the piece that you guys needed back then to get to the NBA Finals, and the impact in which he had was absolutely undeniable. I feel that Desmond Bane can be that Horace Grant type of a figure for this year's team. Just how do you think Bane has played so far this year with this group, and do you think he has the potential to have that Horace Grant type of effect with this young ball club?
Well, ironically, I've made that same comparison earlier in the year, that I think acquiring Desmond Bane was very similar to us acquiring Horace Grant back in the day to go to the next level. And, unfortunately, Desmond hasn't had the opportunity to play with a fully healthy team like Paolo. But I've been very impressed with Desmond Bane. He's, being in the Western Conference and you only see these guys once or twice a year, you don't really have the same feel for Western Conference players that you do for guys in the East, because you just don't see them enough. And, I thought Desmond was more of like, just a three-point shooter, but he's shown me his ability to get to the basket, his ability to finish with both hands, a lot like Paolo. He's got a big, strong body, and he can take contact at the rim, and it doesn't affect his shot. But it does give him the opportunity to get to the free throw line a lot. His three-point numbers are continually coming up, and he's an excellent hard-nosed defender. So I just believe if we can get healthy coming out of this European trip, I believe that this team, if we're healthy, can move up the standings in the Eastern Conference pretty significantly.
All right, Coach, before we let you go, and again, thank you so much for giving us a couple moments of your time. Just give me your keys to victory for the Orlando Magic here, as now they face the Philadelphia 76ers, a very tough team inside of the Eastern Conference. Orlando looking for their first back-to-back victories in over a month.
Well, obviously, anytime you're going against Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, you've got your hands full.
Yes.
But it's going to be a difficult game, I think, again, because we're not 100% healthy. But we're at home, which we've had very, very few home games over the last month. The team's been on the road a lot. These are what they call getaway games. The game tonight against Philly and the game Sunday afternoon against New Orleans. You call them getaway games because you want to win these before you go on the road, before they go to Berlin and London for that trip. You don't want to go into that trip on a negative note with losses, in your last two games before taking off for Berlin. But it's going to be a difficult game. It's hard to forecast. The edges were at home, but you never know. Those are two ultimate Hall of Fame players in Embiid and Maxey, and if we can shut down one of them or do a respectable job on one of them, it'll go a long way toward getting a win tonight.
That game will be at 7 p.m. You can hear that game on the FanDuel Sports Network. Coach Brian Hill, so gracious, giving us a couple moments of his time to break down the Magic and the entire ball club. Coach, I could go just hours upon hours with you just wanting to talk about your team back in the 90s and what you guys were able to accomplish. Hopefully we can do that sometime down the road. Just, sir, thank you so much for a couple of moments today.
RJ, you just let me know when you want to talk again. I'm happy to do it.
A big thank you to Coach Brian Hill for all his insight on this group. And although there is patience that needs to be had with this ball club, I do think there are things in which they have to do better. Listen, Boston's without Jason Tatum. They're not just treading water, but they're swimming with inside the Eastern Conference. Same with Philadelphia, who you play tonight. VJ Edgecombe coming on strong his rookie year. Tyrese Maxey doing a phenomenal job with guys like Joel Embiid and Paul George who haven't been in the lineup consistently this season. We love the idea, in my opinion, of bringing up the fact that the injuries have hurt us. And let me be very clear, the injuries have hurt us because you do have two legitimate all-stars on this team in both Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. But I think with the Bane trade, you legitimately now have almost three all-stars in this group and a guy who I think is going to be in the mix for most improved than Anthony Black. I think this is a better team than the position in which they are in, which is sixth place at the time we're recording this. You are going to need to make some decisions if you are the Magic here in the coming weeks. Good choice, not trading for Trae Young, but on the floor, you haven't been that team that fans have wanted to see. And that comes with injuries or not. And it gets looked at a lot more when you're a team that has expectations. I think that they can fix a lot of things. I also believe that you can fix this with Jamal Mosley, but he has to do a better job in some of his rotations at times, in my opinion. To those who think that it's a coaching problem solely on Jamal, I don't think that entirely. For those who think that this team is better without Paolo Banchero and the team should build around Franz, that's crazy to me. I think you need both of them, and you see what Paolo Banchero is doing right now. He's getting his legs underneath him. This team as a whole that hasn't played to their full potential yet, and many have this squad looking at maybe an entry into the NBA Finals, I think once they're able to get back healthy, you're certainly going to be able to do that. But these next few weeks with the Wagners coming back and Jalen Suggs coming back, I think it's going to be very telling to us as fans about what we're going to see day in and day out with this team. What moves still needing to be made, but being healthy is probably going to solve a lot more questions as you start making those moves, hopefully, if you're Jeff Weltman. I think this is a team that can still be in the mix when it comes to the NBA playoffs. We heard during the NBA Cup, analysts saying we believe that the Magic are going to be in the Final Four when it comes to the NBA playoffs, being that team that's possibly in the Eastern Conference Finals. But we're going to have to see a much better product, and maybe with a couple of moves made by this team, we'll just see how far away in which they are. But first thing is first, win this game tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers. Get your first back-to-back wins in over a month, and I think you're going to be headed on the right path. But that is going to do it for us here on the program. We thank you so much for spending time with us today. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel if it is your first time. Also, let us know in the comments section the moves you would like to see the Orlando Magic make and how you feel they're doing overall. We would love to hear from you, and we would love for you to see what we have coming up here for you in the coming weeks on this channel. So, for Brian Hill, I'm RJ Saunders. Go Magic! We'll talk to you next week.